Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Burning Peak, and in today's video, we are going to be comparing the T110E5 to the Super Conqueror. These are two Tier 10 heavies, and they are quite strong tier heavies, I'd be willing to say. The Super Conqueror was nerfed a couple months back. Its DPM was slightly worsened, and it lost a bit of HP, but the vehicle still has very good damage per minute. It still has an incredibly accurate gun, and in general is very dangerous. But the T110E5 has started to get a bit of a following, judging that it has more damage per minute than the Super Conqueror, and almost the same aiming time and gun handling values. So the question that we're going to be asking in today's video, what's better, the Super Conqueror or the T110E5? I'm going to be playing in both of these vehicles, showcasing my opinions on these tanks. We're going to be talking about the armor and explaining which of the two I think are better. We are going to start off today's video by doing a statistical comparison of the Super Conqueror versus the E5. We can see that the Super Conqueror has 230 less effective DPM than the E5, which is actually a rather substantial amount. We can see that equates to about a 1 second reload difference, the Super Conqueror sitting at a 9.6 second reload, where the E5 is an 8.8 second reload. But in terms of their other characteristics, they have the same caliber gun, the same shell velocity, basically everything is the same for their ammo capacity, so very similar in that situation. But what's not similar is the guns. The E5 features a flat worse gun on terms of dispersion. We can see the E5 has 0.02 worse base dispersion, its on-movement dispersion is worse by 0.02, and the tank traverse dispersion is worse on move. However, the turret traverse is actually quite a bit worse for the Super Conqueror. Turret traverse dispersion is when you're actually moving the turret backwards and forwards, left and right. Well, I guess you can't move a turret backwards and forwards, but you know what I mean, if you're turning the turret. And it's actually quite a big difference there, a 40% difference between the E5 and Super Conq. So basically, you're going to be better off in the Super Conqueror if you're moving backwards and forwards, driving the tank, maneuvering it, but you're going to be worse when actually turning the turret, where the E5 is the complete opposite, which I guess is better for the E5 if you're sitting hull down, but you do have that hatch, so that's something you're going to have to keep in mind. Gun depression-wise, the Super Conqueror has 2 more degrees, which is actually a big advantage. It's about a 20% increase. Mobility-wise, honestly pretty similar between the tanks. The E5 is a bit faster, 37 kilometers per hour instead of 34, and I should also mention that the power to weight on the E5 is quite a bit better. But reverse speed-wise, both tanks are pretty lackluster at only 12. Would highly recommend to run a turbo on both of these vehicles. The power-to-weight ratio is also a lot better on paper compared to the Super Conq, but what you do have to remember is that the Super Conqueror has better terrain resistances on hard and soft terrain, actually making their power-to-weights closer than what they would seem. Traverse speed is also slightly better for the E5, so in general, the E5 is a much more mobile vehicle, and even though its gun is slightly worse on-move values, and it has a little bit less gun depression, in general the tank seems to be a lot more flexible and better off in the gun and mobility characteristics. I think we can both agree that the gun on the Super Conqueror and E5 are both very good and much better off compared to their respective other Tier 10 heavies. So that brings us to, in my opinion, the most important question: how is the armor? Well, let's start off with the Super Conqueror. We can see the upper plate is about 270 millimeters thick. It also has a plate of spaced armor, which is about 26 millimeters. This means that firing heat shells at the upper plate of the Super Conq is a no-go and will cause you to bounce a lot of ammo. And if using this vehicle with its gun depression, you can see that the upper plate is now upwards of 330. Even loading gold, you have no chance at cutting through due to the changes in shell normalization. Super Conq armor in general is very strong, but it does have a big weakness on the lower part of the turret, only sitting at around 280. If you aim on the lower half of the turret, this is definitely where you're going to be able to pen it. But if you miss, as we can see, this tank is incredibly well armored. Even the hatch on the vehicle is basically an auto ricochet unless you have high pen heat or you are aiming above the vehicle. So in general, the Super Conqueror is an incredibly well armored vehicle when using gun depression, and if you're able to hide those weaknesses, man, is this going to be a scary tank. Even on side scraping capabilities, it's very, very good and it's robust. The only real weaknesses you're going to have to worry about is possibly over angling it or maybe somebody cutting through here, but I don't really see that as much of an issue. The Super Conqueror in general is a very well armored beast. Now we arrive to the E5. Now the E5 is a lot more red on the upper plate, and that's definitely the case. We can see that the entire upper plate and turret is nearly impossible to cut through, apart from the cheeks. But it's still, I mean, it's really awkward to cut through this, so I don't even bother. But it doesn't matter, because you got this hatch, and the hatch is only about 240 mils effective. So basically, if you load gold, you're penning this hatch every single time. And that is the major weakness of the E5. It might feature great gun depression, but at the end of the day, that hatch is always going to be apparent. And it doesn't matter how hard you try to actually hide it, it's always going to be there. The lower plate on both these vehicles are obviously quite weak, and while the E5 does actually have really troll lower armor, the track wheel itself is quite easy to cut through, as we can see, and same for the upper engine deck. Overall, the Super Conqueror has better armor than the E5. That is factual. Because while the Super Conqueror might not feature as strong of an upper plate or a lower plate, what it does have is basically no hatch, especially if you're using it with gun depression. Where the E5, it doesn't matter what you do, that hatch is always going to be a weak spot. It's something you're going to have to keep in mind. So that brings us to the final question of actual gameplay. How did these two tanks perform? Well, let's find out and get into some live battles. We are going to be starting with the Super Conqueror. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is a replay. Yesterday night, I was recording this video, and it turns out that when I wanted to start recording, I accidentally ended the recording. So, after I had played my game in the E5 and the Super Conqueror and said my thoughts, I ended the recording, looked over at my recording software and said, I just screwed up big time. So, the Super Conq game was honestly really solid, and I figured why not show this battle, especially because I played it just a few hours ago. I just woke up, so I figured this will be a great showcase of the Super Conqueror and why it is still, even after the nerfs, an absolutely fantastic vehicle, and honestly why I would still recommend to grind it. And then we'll see obviously how the E5 does live after. So starting off this game, I am going to make my way to the crossing, and we're going to get a shell into the 4005. I always load gold as my first shot. Unfortunately, the tank I had gold against was indeed a vehicle that obviously didn't really require gold shells to penetrate. I probably could have loaded a high explosive, but I didn't really think it was worth it, just because I wasn't sure if he was going to try and snap me or if he was going to stop, so just wanted to guarantee the pen. As of now, there's not much going on in this battle. We can see the Object 260 and T22 Medium have made rather aggressive plays on their team, and our AMX is bleeding a little bit, but so is their Object 260. Making over aggressions is usually what punishes people in this game. So we get a nice shot into the IS-32, and yes, you saw that right. Well, apparently the 4005 is able to sit behind that one single tree there and not be spotted. Don't we love bush mechanics in this game, you know, because clearly that tree is really, it's really good cover for a massive barn. Yeah, I love World of Tanks sometimes. So, unfortunately, we are down half of our health because of a bit of really kind of stupid map design. We're going to aim it on the IS-32, get an easy shell into his lower plate, and we're up to 1500 damage at this point, which is pretty good. I can't get all too mad. Alright, well, we're going to load gold, just because of what we have up against us, the WZ-114, and we're going to get a good bounce on our tracks. As I did talk about, the armor on this vehicle when it comes to side scraping is actually rather strong. At this point, I'm going to load an HE and, well, deal 0. I was really hoping we could squeeze the HE in between the spaced armor on that T22 and deal, I don't know, maybe like 100 damage, but it actually did nothing, which is rather unfortunate. We have a shell on the 114, but the T22 pokes in the last second, making it impossible to hit him. I mean, the T22 doesn't worry me. There's nothing that player can do to my tank, and he's dead now. So that was a really big misplay from that T22. But in general, I wasn't worried about him. I mean, in a side scrape, there's no way his heat shells are going to be cutting through my spaced armor on the tracks there. It wasn't a worry. What I am worried about is that 4005. I don't know where he is, but I do know that I'm not spotted. By looking at the minimap, you can see the Object 260 is slightly outside of my render range. So we get a shell into the enemy 4005. That's pretty good. Now we're up to 2,000 damage dealt. And we're going to aim it on the 4005 again. We're going to get another shell into his vehicle, and look at that. We're able to angle our vehicle side on, and again, showcase that great side scraping capability that this vehicle has. I really do like that moment. Like, just being able to get inside scrapes and get all these bounces feels very, very nice. Now, unfortunately, our shell on the 114 hatch appears to not really like us and doesn't end up penetrating his tank. We have a little corner of his vehicle, and I'm hoping that he pokes it, and there you go, nice. 413 damaging shell into the 114. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. We have the IS-32. We get a shell into him as well. Alright, well, We're up to 3,000 damage now. The 114 is going to poke, and ooh, not able to get the shell into his hatch yet. I'm going to move up a little bit so we're closer to that 114. Come on, poke it. Do it. Well, he does, and we slam a shell right into his hatch, dealing 180 damage. Now, interestingly enough, the leopard was looking at me. I really did not think that the leopard on the enemy team was going to be looking at my vehicle when, you know, there's an M60 on him, but I guess he was looking at me. But we do get a shell into the Conway. Pretty good stuff. We have the Hori T3, and I don't want to be shot by a Hori, especially judging that I'm only a 2-shot for him. So I'm going to be a little careful here. Unfortunately, we just don't get that shell into the enemy leopard, but again, I'm being really careful against this Hori. I don't want to be shot by him, but the leopard pokes, so we get a nice shell into his tank, dealing over 4,000 damage at this point. While the game has progressed quite a bit, as we can see, it's still quite even. 6,900 to 5,300 hit points, which is a lot closer than you'd honestly think it would be. So we're going to move up here a little bit. Come on. Is that leopard going to poke it? Well, not yet. We got gold loaded again. The only reason I have gold loaded is because of the Hori, but at this point we can see that the Hori has been spotted and is on the side. We can also see the 4005. I'm going to load a high explosive shell at this point. And even though I know that 4005 is going to be looking at me, if I poke it properly, I should be able to get a shell into the Hori without the 4005 being able to see me. And there you go. A nice 522 juicer into the Hori. We do get shot, but I don't really care. I'm going to clear the 4005, and just like that, pretty good stuff. Almost 5,000 damage dealt now. We are going to poke the leopard. I'll be honest, pretty poor shot from me here. I was kind of hoping that there was that little lip in the building, but I didn't realize that until rolling around the corner. Ooh, and the Cobra shoots us as well, bringing us down a lot of our health, but get a nice high explosive shell into the side of the Leopard 1, and that leaves only 2 vehicles left, both being artillery. Well, we're out of high explosive, which is a little sad, because I do wish we could have fired HE into these already, but we're still going to make our way over to the rear. And here we go, we got the enemy FV3, boom, dead. Alright, all that's left is one more arty. We're going to aim it on his vehicle, aiming in, and fire! Well, I can't get too mad. We did 5,736 damage, and the fact that that already fired premium HE and was able to kill me, whatever. I mean, being a 3-mark arty player, that's a bigger diss than me dying. So, at the end of the day, this was a really good Super Conq game. It was a first class. We did 5,700 damage. We blocked 1,700. Plus, we blocked more than that because it didn't even count the shell from the 4005 that tracked me. So we blocked a lot. We did a great job in general, and we picked up 5 kills. And it's such a good showcase of why, even after the nerfs, the Super Conqueror is just a fantastic vehicle. Its armor is great. Its DPM is fantastic because its accuracy is amazing. Everything about the Super Conqueror is just amazing, and it's one of the major reasons why I still think it's a great tank to grind, even after the nerfs. So now, let's make our way back into the game, and let's actually get into some live battles in the E5. Alright, we arrive on Fisherman's Bay, which is an alright map for the E5. We can get hull down, we can hopefully use our gun depression, and bleed out our opponents. Okay, well, what do we have? 777, or a 277, not a 777. The enemy team is a 777. T110E5. Alright. Well, I think we should be able to do okay here. The nice thing about the E5 is that it does have good mobility. And while it's not like the best, you know, a 277 is going to beat us in the position. Same for like a VZ on the enemy team. But we're still pretty fast in the sense that we should be able to get at least hull down without having to worry about being rushed or, you know, getting bled out too much. However, great example of that VZ already managing to get into that position before we are able to move up. We also got that Chieftain Proto, and bruh, goes right through our hatch. Classic experience for this tank. Good news is that Chieftain Proto lost a lot more health than I did for that, so wasn't worth it, was it now, bruh? Alright, well, the Chieftain shoots, and we're going to aim in a shell of our own, 337. Not sure if that was worth it for you, Chieftain. Alright, so we got the VZ on our side, and we get a nice 462. Really hoping he doesn't rush me. We got the Arty shooting 433. Okay, game. Okay. Alright, well, we get a nice shell into the lower plate of the VZ. And we've already pushed off the enemy. Arty's trying to shoot at me again. Thankfully, that one did not hit. But man, is it rat just to have a freaking cringer shooting at you. Alright, well, let's aim it on the VZ, and as much as I want to slam that shell, give it a little bit of time, and then get it out. Okay, well, We know where the E100 is, and because of that, we're just going to flank behind if we can with the 277, and we'll see if we can get some shells out. Although we actually have the Waffenträger over in the open as well. Well, if that waffle's going to keep going out, I'm just going to aim right here and bonk. There you go. 381 shot. And then he gets hit again, and he's dead. Yeah, that was not the best play. Going to be honest there, Mr. Waffle. Got an AFK standard B. Nice shot. This is where the DPM of the E5 is definitely going to be quite incredible. Just farming out this player. I don't think he's going to enjoy this very much. Got that Leopard PTA in the back, and I'm kind of hoping that the Leopard... Oh, what was that, bruh? The E5 sometimes has a really derpy gun for, like, no reason, and that was definitely derp there. But we hit that shot. That was a really lucky one, I'll be honest. Did not think we were going to hit that. Alright, let's see if that Leopard backs up again. There you go. Both the 277 and I hit that shot, bringing what was a fairly healthy Leopard down to basically nothing. Again, bruh. This gun. Hopefully... Okay, good. Well, at least we got the assistance to help our teammate out there. Alright, well, we can't hit the Yag Tiger. I'm going to drive down here. We're going to get behind the E100 if we can. And, come on, keep going. Nice. There you go. Nice shot. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get any more out. And... Nice, we do. Okay, beautiful. All that's left is the 777, who is full health and in mid. Well, this was a good game, but there were definitely some things I should mention that I noticed while using this vehicle, and that is the kind of sussler accuracy the E5 has. You'll notice that. It's got 0.3 dispersion, really good aiming time, but for some reason, it really likes to miss easy shots, if you want my opinion, and that can be really frustrating sometimes. The tank still does a good job, and it can get out some really good farm, but I don't know, the gun can be a little sus at moments. We're definitely not going to be able to get any more damage out this game. I mean, there's no way we would have been able to beat the rest of our team anyway into this position. I was kind of hoping this 777 would just kind of YOLO out, but nah, there's no way we were ever going to get up there. But hey, I'll take a 4,000 damage result. Really, the only shot that annoyed me was the one that hatched us. The only other damage we took was from an Artie, classic Artie moment. But the E5 is definitely a very capable vehicle. We can see the gun is fairly accurate for what it is. Its penetration is great, its DPM is fantastic, and the mobility allows you to play quite aggressive. And we did top on the team, so I can't really get all too mad. If you want my personal opinion, I like the Super Conqueror more. I just think the Super Conqueror is a better vehicle. While it may not have as much DPM, what it does have is slightly better accuracy with a much better armor profile, which allows you to feel just so much more capable when you're sitting hull down and able to do your job. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about the Super Conq versus the E5. I think they're both fantastic, and it's really down to what you want. The E5 is slightly more mobile and a little more flexible on traversing and overall, you know, kind of playing more like a mobile heavy, where the Super Conqueror can do the role of a mobile heavy, but it can also play aggressive. It can really get that super heavy playstyle down, which is great. So it depends on what playstyle you want. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and as always, if you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.